Hello, world. This is America's Supermom, and this is a special edition that I call the Corona Chronicles. During this time, we are suffering from a pandemic that is affecting everyone across the world. We are joined with the rules and regulations of being shelter in place, which means we are limited with the ability to go about our daily business, confined to our homes based on a coronavirus that has been sweeping the entire world. For some people, the effects could be mild. For others, it can be fatal. So we are coming together as a community, as a family during this time of difficulty to share what it is like in our part of the world, how we are affected, and the things that we have in common, what kind of problems that are taking place in our industries and in our relationships and finances, and coming together so that we can plan for a better tomorrow. As this epidemic or pandemic crosses the world, we are waiting for relief. We're waiting for the virus to die off and for us to go back to some state of normalcy, whatever that may be, after things kind of settle down. So what is that going to look like once the dust settles? How are things going to be different? So as we go through this process, we're coming together as a world to create ideas, strategies, connect in ways that we have never connected before. So that is the purpose of the special podcast that I call the Corona Chronicles, so that we can get some insight and have empathy and compassion on one another, create new innovative ideas that can not only improve our life, but our fellow brothers and sisters across the world. Thank you so much for joining us. Hello, hello.
Hello. How?
I am well. So glad you could join me today, Sarah. Really excited to hear your tips, your wisdom, whatever you have led on your heart to share. Just want to briefly tell everybody that we got connected last year in my first attempt of getting out of my comfort zone doing Facebook Lives. And just so glad that our paths crossed because you have so much wisdom, energy, your consistency, and the things that you do. I mean, you just are a real powerhouse. So I am glad to have you here to join us today.
What an introduction. I feel spoiled.
And it is all true, okay?
It has been so incredible getting to know you, watching you grow your network. And, for those of you who don't know me, I'm all about networking and inspiring people on how to network with what I call new age networking. Mm-hmm. So, looking past the elevator pitch and the business cards and really diving into purpose-driven networking. And so it's been so incredible to connect with you because I see you doing so much of that. Mm-hmm. And I just love the innovative ways that you have been utilizing connection to grow your business and to grow your community and to inspire other people to do the same. So I really appreciate being here.
Awesome. Well, so tell us about you. You've got so many different things as a networker. You've got groups and events that I'm sure, we'll hear all about them. But how you got to where you are today, because it's quite a story.
Yeah. So I guess I'll start with a little bit of where I am. So I'm the founder of The Savvy Networker. We have 30 networking events in 30 cities across Canada and the US. Mm-hmm. And we launched just over 2 years ago now. So it's been phenomenal growth. We've got just over 13,000 networkers amongst the different communities.
Wow.
And the intention is really to teach them how to learn, earn, and grow.
Mm-hmm.
And it's funny looking back at how I got started. And, I know, Lachelle, we've shared a little bit of this story before, but for me, I owned a networking agency. And if there's any or a marketing agency, and, for any marketers listening to this, you'll get this right off the bat. You'll be like, oh yeah, I've been there, done that.
Mm-hmm.
And what would happen is in my agency, people would hire me to do their marketing. And, it would be like the typical, I need social media posts, or I need a website, or I need blog articles. And, their biggest question would always be like, how many social posts are you putting out a week? How many blogs can you write? When will my website be done? And I very quickly learned that the entrepreneur's mind when it came to marketing was very baseline, right? There wasn't the depth that needed to come with it. And I knew that because they were asking all the wrong questions. And so as a marketer, marketing agencies, most commonly, and I hear this across the board the more I talk openly about it, but marketing agencies are always in this like, hey, it's not my job to build your business. It's my job to market your business. And because people aren't having that foundational component and that structure, marketing agencies are often in a place where they're trying to market without foundation. And so it ends up essentially being useless for the entrepreneur. And if you're on the other end of that, if you're the entrepreneur who's hired the marketing company and you're not getting the results you want, it's not necessarily that they didn't do their job. It's that maybe the foundation's not in place. So I got started because I understood that, like, wait a minute, let's pause, put the pause button, and people need to be educated on really how to operate the business and how to find connections, not just to buy business, like buy in the business, because that's really what networking has become. How can I generate leads? And leads are great. We need them. We need hot leads. We need warm leads. But we also need the right people to support the business growth. So, who are those people who can educate us on the things we don't know when it comes to operating a business? Maybe you just suck at sales and it's time to just admit that. And maybe when you're networking, finding someone that, maybe you can hire them to do your sales or hire them to train you and your team, or maybe you just utilize that connection as someone to learn from. So it's someone that you dive into their content and follow their content. And I found a lot of people weren't really using networking to its full potential. So I really worked on shifting out of marketing and into this space where I could really help people utilize this networking platform to do more in their business and really just build better businesses.
I love that. And, this is just really key to make you somewhat of an expert, really, with what we're doing right now. As people are transitioning from doing live events to now being virtual and doing things online. So for somebody who is, you had the foresight to be able to see that and act on it. So what advice would you give somebody who is in that place of kind of being able to foresee some things changing majorly in their industry, to kind of have the courage to step out and do that? What would you say to them?
Yeah, so one of the things that I always recommend for entrepreneurs, and maybe it's not so much even a courage thing, but more of an awareness thing. So I always tell people, and I bet if we did a poll, Lachelle, in your community and mine, because we challenge people on this all the time, did you start your business with a business plan or a business map? Like a proper formal, business map. And I'm going to say about 8 out of 10 people when we poll them say no. And when we ask people if they have a revenue plan and a revenue map, 8 out of 10 people say no. And these two components are the key basis to operating any business successfully. And so
Mm-hmm.
that business model map is made up of 9 components. And
Mm-hmm.
so when I say to people, like, if you're feeling stuck, if you're feeling lost, if you're trying to pivot, if you're trying to transition, the best place to start is going and either revising that, like looking at what was your intention to begin with, because we
Mm-hmm.
tend to stray from that. It
Mm-hmm.
happens frequently. What was
Mm-hmm.
your intention to begin with? Is it still your intention? And how can you restructure with, I mean, obviously we're dealing with, so much adversity in the world right now, but how can you restructure with the tools and resources you have, or the
Mm-hmm.
things that you are able to learn, because that's key,
Mm-hmm.
to pivot enough to still get to the end goal? Or if you don't have a business model map, you're typically the entrepreneur that's like, throwing spaghetti at the wall a little bit, right?
Mm-hmm.
And there's just a little bit of that lack of clarity on, like, where do I start? What do I do? How do I build? And that pivot can become so much more difficult without a foundation in place to begin with. So my
Mm-hmm.
recommendation would be to go back and create that business model map, and to
Mm-hmm.
also partner it with a revenue map, because one does not work without the other. And I think that that's really, I guess, having the courage to step aside and kind of go, like, wait a minute, my business isn't working. Like, it's really not
Mm-hmm.
working right now. That's the
Mm-hmm.
courage piece. And I think that the awareness piece is to just do the work,
I
right?
love that. I love that. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think, what would you say for somebody who is in a transition and, you've got a lot of things that are changing, a lot of moving parts at one time? Do you think that you just need one coach? Do you need multiple coaches? For somebody who might have a major organization, or it could be a small business that, you've had this revenue model, this business map, but here we are with the unforeseen world pandemic that has definitely changed the trajectory. So how would you advise them to kind of navigate through that?
Yeah, so I mean, I'm always apt to tell people, if you're feeling stuck, if you're feeling uncertain, if, I use this as a gauge, right? If you in your
Mhm.
head go, like, I need to get this done, but in order to get this done, I need to do this, but I can't do this because I need to do that. And in order to do that, I'm going to need this. If that's
Right.
where you are in your business, a coach is going to do that 300,000-foot view and look down and in and be able to, like, pull that all together, right? And
Mhm.
wait a minute, let's just regroup here, let's restructure this, and let's start here and go here. A coach can be so helpful for that, because they're coming at it from a point of view that, you know, they're looking at it to guide you, right? That
Mhm.
emotional connection to the outcome isn't there in the same way. So they're able to give that
Mhm.
subjective advice to just kind of, here's what you got to do step by step, and work with you that way. But I
Mhm.
think that one of the biggest things that people can do to kind of like adhere to what is happening in the world right now, and if they're kind of stuck in, like, where do I go from here? I say this, despite what's happening in the world, just a normal, regular day.
Mhm.
When you have a vision of what your business looks like when it's finished, and I know people always say, Sarah, like, this is entrepreneurship, it's never done. But there's got to be, like, a point where you can say, this is success for me, and when I achieve this, I will have achieved success. Everything else is a bonus on top of it.
Mm.
Everything else is a
Mhm.
bonus from here on out. What is
Mhm.
that vision, that success point? Attach the vision. Like, what is that? And then right now, today, whether you have a coach, whether you don't, whether the world is falling apart, whether you have clients or you don't have clients, whether your business is a mess, in order to live that vision, you need to think, act, and behave as the person who
Mhm.
is operating that vision. Because
Mm-hmm.
my favorite statement, and I say this all the time, what got you here to where you are today is not what's going to get you there. So you need
Right.
to think, act, and behave it. And some people find that really challenging. And I always, as a coach, I always encourage them to actually create exercises that they do daily that force
Mm-hmm.
them to think, act, and behave, right? If you show up and you do that
Mm-hmm.
exercise, you're going to naturally transition into this leader. And I think that that's the thing, right? Have the vision,
Right.
attach it to your definition of success, and then think, act, and behave as if that's happening. And this is where I find most entrepreneurs go comfort zone, like I'm out of it. but
Mm-hmm.
but there in those moments is where we define this is what I'm made of. This is what I'm capable of.
Mm.
And without, I want to say without effort, there is an effort that goes into thinking, acting, and behaving. But that is the
Mm-hmm.
maximum amount of effort you really have to put in at that point. Because as you
Mm-hmm.
put the effort solely into that, everything else transforms around you, and it almost begins to feel effortless as it happens. Obviously, not in the
I love that.
beginning. Yeah. So
Mm-hmm.
I think that would really be like my way of phrasing it, and having people, go and live out that to kind of create success, especially from where they're at right now.
That is so true. Now, so you brought up a good thing about the live and act and
Yeah.
do the behavior. So this is can be very misunderstood when it comes to this concept of fake it till you make it. You have the vision. So I definitely want us to kind of um, go over this whole thing of showing people how they're able to act on their vision under the guidance of a coach, and how that, can you give us an example for like somebody how this actually takes place instead of a concept to where, hey, just wing it until it happens, or till
Yeah,
you
I've
feel
got the
comfortable. You
best
know what I'm
example,
saying?
and this is such a personal example. So this was my business, right?
Mhm.
And I had a
Mhm.
coach. I mean, I still have a coach, and I coach, which I think that everyone can just
Mhm.
really deeply benefit from that. But when it came
Mhm.
time to looking at my vision was really like, this is not a self-operated business. Like, Sarah Gretzinger alone cannot manage 30 cities and coach and bring on hosts, and it's just not going to happen,
Mhm.
right? And there
Mhm.
was a true understanding that, like, you can do anything, but you can't do everything all at the same time. So for me, my
Mhm.
experience with thinking, acting, and behaving as if it were already true came from implementing structure in my business that would force me to understand, what is it going to look like when I have these employees? Because now I've got to train
Mm.
them. Now I've got to be a boss to them. Now I've got to be a leader to them. Now I got to have new systems and new structure. And like, there was so much that came with it. And for a lot of people, we're like,
Mhm.
okay, so, I'm overworked and overwhelmed. I'm going to hire a VA. Great. Then they go and they hire a VA
Mhm.
for $10 an hour. And then, the VA doesn't show up in the way they want them to. And I'm always like, okay, so let's look at your leadership skills. And they're like, no, 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 the VA didn't do what I wanted them to. Okay,
Mm.
let's look at your leadership skills. So for
Right.
me, I broke down, exactly what staff we needed to operate. What were the staff that we needed to operate?
Mhm.
What were their job roles, right? And from those
Mhm.
job roles, what did I expect to happen within the company from both a foundational standpoint, from a social standpoint, and from a revenue standpoint? And then I
Mm.
broke my day down into 2-hour time slots for each one of those
Mhm.
employees. And I worked in those time
Mm.
slots because I was thinking, acting, and behaving as if this were going to happen, right? And I acted in those time slots as
Mm.
those employees to figure out, can this be done in this amount of time? You know, are the systems that I'm using working? And, are these people like going to be responsible for reporting, and how are they going to do that? And what it taught me was that the whole foundation, as soon as I were to hire staff, it was going to fall apart because we didn't have the structure. And so by acting as if I were the employee, it taught me what I was going to need when I hired an employee. And so how was I going to teach somebody else to do something that already wasn't working? And as a leader, I'm like, wait a minute, if I'm the leader, I'm the CEO, I'm the founder, how will I show up for these people when these problems happen? And so I was able to learn that. Now, I mean, that strategy is not going to work for everyone. But I think you really, you know, if you want to, let's say, you know, have a six-figure year, okay, this year, and you're thinking, I'm broke, instead of thinking today's a new day to create, you know, blank towards becoming a six-figure earner, it's a mindset thing, but it's also an action thing. I can say, today I'm going to take action to do it, but if my action is nothing that coincides with what I really need to be doing to create six figures, and I'm just posting on social media with no intention, I'm not acting. I'm thinking it, but I'm not acting it. And the behavior is, okay, you know, every Sunday or Monday or whatever day, I'm going to plan out the most intentional action steps that I need to do throughout my week. And every morning for me, I'm going to, you know, think, and I'm going to meditate on why these things are so important, why I'm going to show up with everything I've got. And then I'm going to behave as that leader because I'm going to follow through and do it. And I think that transitions it. So if if you have a coach, obviously you want to follow that, right? You want to follow the leader and get that advice. And if you don't, then you need to put that safeguard in place for yourself to really transition into it.
I love that. That definitely is true. And, you know, I think it's one of the things that when you are starting a business, or, you know, you're going through this growth process, you know, some of the real truth we kind of don't want to hear.
Exactly.
You know, about going through the work, and, you know, but it's the work that you do one time. It's the thing that we could do one time that can impact the whole trajectory of our business and how we move forward, you know?
Yes. Yeah.
So
exactly.
Awesome. Now let's go over really briefly the whole concept that you talk about with the 5 people or something when it comes to knowing how to categorize them, because a lot of people, as they go through transition, they're networking with different people, and, you know, for them to be able to kind of keep it moving and staying positive and making sure they're making those right connections in order to keep moving their business forward. Could you kind of speak to your process of knowing how to categorize people as you make an acquaintance with them?
Yeah, absolutely. So I call it the 5 people you meet at networking events, but really, when you look at the broad spectrum of networking events, it can be, you know, hanging at the park with your kids if you're talking to other parents, or at the soccer field, the grocery store, a virtual event, or even a Facebook group where you're engaging in. I mean, networking happens everywhere. It is unavoidable. And so for me, I understood that my business needed growth from the foundation standpoint, from the business foundation, from the revenue foundation, and from the community foundation. And as I worked at growing that community, I just remember, you know, back in the day, and if you've ever done this or you are still doing this, please stop. And if you did do it, don't feel guilty, because I did it too. So did a lot of people. But what happens is we go on to like a social media group and we just like add all these friends. Ever been there, done that? And, you know, we make all these connections, or we show up at a networking event and we collect business cards. You know, we just like literally walk around the room and grab them, or speed networking, and we get like 30 seconds or a minute where we talk to somebody and we grab their card, and then it's kind of like the intention is I'll email you, right? And that's kind of it. Like, that's the intention. I'm going to email you. Or, you know, we'll create a Facebook post. And this is one of my favorite forms of networking now that we're all virtual. We will create a Facebook post. We will ask a question, and, you know, 30, 40, 50 people will respond. And then, like, we create another Facebook post. That's just kind of it, right? And I thought, how the heck am I going to manage and maintain building my business model, my revenue model, and my community when this is the true way that networking happens online? And how am I going to be different and do this different? So I created the method, the 5 people you need at networking events. And the first person is the time waster. And I'll go through them real quick. But the first person is the time waster. And you guys, you got to be able to recognize, you know, who is this person? Because it's not about being so shallow that you're like, oh, I don't have time for other people. But if you're showing up online with an intention to build your business, or you're showing up at an event with an intention to build your business, you've got to honor that intention, right? It's not to say like, oh, I don't care about other people, but you have to honor your own desire, your own goal, and your own fulfillment in that moment. And that's what you're there to do. So the time wasters are people that we redirect. So use a piece of content. Instead of engaging in that 20-minute conversation where they're spilling the beans about their whole life or all the woes that they're having, don't be insensitive enough that you just like, okay, I don't have time for you. Don't just like exit and block the conversation, but rather redirect them to a resource. Because what's going to happen is they're going to go, they're just going to constantly, like, you're just going to constantly, oh, I have this new resource. Oh, I have this. You're hoping that they pick something of value up from that. And if they don't, eventually they're just going to be like, okay, I'm not getting the attention I need here. I'm not. And they're just going to go on to the next person, which is unfortunate, but it's not your job to save everyone. Okay. It is not. We're not on this planet to save everyone. When we have our own foundation and structure in place first, we can always support everyone. But, you know, we need to let these people figure out where they fit in, and when they're ready to hire the right person to do that or go on their own journey, they're going to do it. And the number 2s and 3s are the lead categories. So the 2s are the warm leads. And so warm leads, I tell people that the best way to identify a warm lead is that if you are networking effectively, it means you are learning about the other person. You're asking questions. You're engaging in conversation about them. And you're sharing little bits of relatable information about you. And in that process, what you will find is that people will say things and you'll go, oh my gosh, I could totally help you with that. Like, that's where your brain's going. Or, oh my gosh, like, I know somebody who can do that for you. And you're not necessarily selling them on it, but you're registering in your brain, yep, warm lead, I'm going to continue to nurture and educate. And so you're going to have a process for that, right? Whether it's a funnel or inviting them into a group, or maybe you do like Zoom chats or whatever it is, you need to engage that person to the next step of the process, but you're not going to sell to them right away because you might know you can help them, but they don't know you can help them yet. And you got to educate them on that. And the number 3s are the hot leads. And those are people that when you're having that conversation, you're learning about them and you say something, they're like, oh my God, I totally needed that. Like, you know, or we've been talking about getting that for our company, or, oh my gosh, I'm totally struggling with that. I need help. Like, they're literally addressing themselves like, hey, Lachelle, you have what I need. Those are your hot leads. You're still going to nurture, but you're going to be really quick to kind of up it to the next level, right? You're going to have a willingness to dive into that non-salesy sales conversation where it's like, okay, wait a minute, let's explore how I can truly help you. If you're saying you need help and you recognize that you need help, let's talk about that. Let's next step it. And the number 4s are probably the most important, aside from the number 5s, but second most important. And the number 4s are people that you can collaborate with. And collaboration is key when done right. Okay. Collaborations can be disastrous if they're not brought in with the right intention and the right structure. So the best way I tell people to recognize a good collaboration is if somebody comes to you, let's say you, Lachelle, you come to me and say like, oh, I have this system. I'd love to, partner with you. I'd love to be involved in your community. And here's how it adds value to your community. That's a great partnership. If you say, here's how it adds value to your community, but you're going to have to go do blank, 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 blank. And that takes away from my vision, which ultimately is attached to my success. It's diverting me away from my vision. Maybe it adds value, but it's also diverting me away from my success point. And that's not great. And so a lot of times people will come at us and they'll say like, oh my God, I have this amazing idea. And you're going to be like, yeah, that is totally amazing idea. If it's not in alignment with your fulfillment and your success and that vision, it's not necessarily the right partnership. And the other way to really identify a good partnership is, first back to the first one, is it's going to add value to your community. Maybe it's going to save you time. Maybe it's going to make processes that you have easier. Maybe you can give something to what that person does and they can equally give something to what you do. And you've got the same, niche market or, it just jives. Like you just know that there's no avoiding it. This totally fits with what you have. Or the other side, if you're at that pivot point where it's like, okay, we are ready to go to the next level, but wait a minute, we're kind of missing this piece. If somebody can come in from a partnership standpoint and they are that piece that maybe you're not good at, maybe you didn't have the tools, maybe you don't. Like for us, we brought on a sales team last year, and our challenge was that we were growing and we didn't have enough people to get on a sales team. And so their sales, instead of hiring a sales team, because we weren't really sure how the community was going to grow, and we didn't really have the stats yet on this new community, we were able to bring on that partnership that they got a percentage of the calls. And so that worked for us because we could try it out. We could see, we could explore. They were willing to do the research while doing the sales calls and document it. So it helped us. It was a good partnership to move them forward and us forward. It was already their business model. So they didn't have to adjust their business model. They could come in as they were. And a bad partnership is someone that just comes along and completely diverts you. And all of a sudden you're like, how the heck did I end up here? Why am I over here in left field when I should be center? And the number fives are the most important. And people actually, I find, devalue this from the full potential that it has. So number fives are people that you aspire to be like. And sometimes people will say, I don't really go, show up at networking events and have like, these crazy people that I'm like, oh my gosh, Tony Robbins, or oh my gosh, Grant Cardone, oh my gosh, Oprah Winfrey. It doesn't have to be like that. You can meet someone and just be so like admiring, their charisma or the way they talk about sales so comfortably and confidently, or the way they work the room, so to speak, how they do it, or the way they show up on social media with such consistency. You can meet people that you're like, wow, I really want to be able to show up in that same way. Right. And what you will typically find about the number fives is that these people have people flocking to them. So they are people that, it's somebody that people are like, gosh, I want to be like that, or I want to be able to do it like that, or I want to. Now, the goal is not to copy them. The goal is to learn from them. So you want to always allot time for this learning, this evolving, this growing, this education piece. Like I do it daily, even on Sundays, right? Saturdays and Sundays, there is still time for personal development and finding leaders who can be in your space, like literally in your space, online, in person, and have that deeper connection with them is so important. But the real goal with the number fives is to become them. And I don't mean to become that person, to become a number five yourself. You want to be someone that people aspire to be like, because what happens in that space is it's not just about your following growing, but it's about the culture that is created by you as an individual and the community that follows you. Because when you become someone people aspire to be like, it's because you've created culture. It's because you've created a kind of culture that people are like, I'm so attracted to that. I so want to be part of this. And as much as, it's not necessarily about a sales pitch, but people want to spend money on you when you're in that space. They believe in you. They trust you. They've seen you actually tangibly do this. And so their willingness to invest in you comes from them wanting what you have instead of you trying to sell them what you have. So the ultimate goal is really to become that number 5. And we really, we learn to become that number 5 by following other leaders and learning what is it about those leaders that is so attractive to me, and is that in line with my vision? Sometimes that's going to be yes, sometimes that's going to be no, but you've got to learn somewhere, right? For most entrepreneurs, we have this great, brilliant idea, and we wake up in the morning and we're like, God, I hate my 9 to 5, or oh my gosh, I need a job, I'm going to start a business. Or we have this passion, and other people see our passion and they're like, hey, Lachelle, you should start a business. And then we get up and we do it, right? And we don't necessarily have, it's not that we don't have what it takes to operate a business. I believe that any individual who has a willingness to show up, a willingness to learn, and who is comfortable being uncomfortable, or who can get comfortable being uncomfortable, can create a business. They can create anything they want when they're in that space. But to just wake up and decide you're going to start a business, you're going to have to learn, right? You're going to have to learn. Yeah. And every time you evolve in business, you're going to have to learn. And so what better way to use networking to find people that inspire you, that you can follow, that you can learn from, because you can actually network with them. Like, how many people do you know can pick up the phone and call Tony Robbins and say, hey, Tony, I got a great idea. It's not going to happen, right? You're going to pay $10,000 and then you're going to do it.
Right.
Right?
So true.
Use networking, use networking to not just focus on leads. And this is really what I've created with this community. It's definitely about building your business. It's definitely about revenue, but what is beyond that, right? The beyond piece is where the magic really happens, I think.
I love that. I love that point about, making sure that you honor your intention. And so this is really the whole thing where you are focused on your vision and you're mindful of that. This is the thing that a lot of women struggle with when it comes to self-care. We've labeled self-care under the umbrella of thinking it's being selfish, but it's something you need in order to stay focused and intentional in the success that you desire. So what are some things that you do on a regular basis to keep you in that mindset of honoring your intention?
Yeah, so this is a touchy subject for me. I'm so direct, right? So I'm going to say it because I always believe on showing up as your authentic self. And I know there's a lot of, women particularly who are going to listen to this. I think the most selfish thing a woman can do is to not put herself first, because a person, forget even just women, a person, the most selfish thing that they can do is actually tell themselves everyone else has got to come first. Because when we do that, we automatically devalue who we are. And when we devalue who we are, like attracts like. So we're breathing it out, okay? And we're showing up, doing everything for everyone else, and then we resent them for it. Because we're not doing it from a place of, love and passion. It always starts out that way, right? It does. It starts out that way. But eventually, and for some it takes days, weeks, months, years. For some people it takes almost a lifetime to look back and go like, crap, I gave everything, but what fulfilled me at the end of the day? And so I think that it's actually selfish of us to do that, because in the long run, if the people around us who loved us and cared about us knew that we didn't feel good about ourselves inside because we didn't take the time to just, take that hour, that 2 hours, or, for some people it's longer, right? Some people it's shorter. If they really knew that they were hurting us by us doing that for them, they would tell us not to do it. And
Mm-hmm.
I truly believe that is true in the deepest core of my being. If, if my partner knew that, I took 2 hours every day to like serve him and it was really me not taking care of me, he'd be like, Sarah, why?
Mm-hmm.
Why would you do that?
Mm-hmm.
I could have done it
Mm-hmm.
myself, honey. And that's true, We just have to have
Mm-hmm.
those big conversations. But some of the things I do are I have a very strict morning routine. And
Mm-hmm.
it's not for everyone, but I like being up before my kids. I like
Mm-hmm.
that quiet time. I actually like the tiptoe through the house to get to the quiet
Mm-hmm.
place. And I'm like, oh yeah, baby, it's
Mm-hmm.
all about you right now.
Mm-hmm.
So I do yoga. I do a run in the morning. I journal for almost an hour and a half every morning on the 12 key areas of my life. And I do the I am statements for each area. And then I always look at like, I've been journaling for a long time. So I look at like the exact day last year. Where was I last year on this day?
Mm.
Where am now? And I mean, not everyone's going to want to do that. But for me, it's always am I evolving and growing or am I stagnant? And there's been lots of times where I'm like, wow, I totally didn't evolve in this area. Like, come on, Sarah, you got
Mm-hmm.
to show up for yourself here. And
Mm-hmm.
then I do a meditation, and I'm not really somebody who vibes with slow, calm meditations. I have this meditation with this girl, and she's like, just fucking do it. Sorry for swearing, but
Mm-hmm.
I
Mm-hmm.
love that, right? Because it's me and it resonates with me. And so I show up for
Mm-hmm.
myself that way. I take a 90-minute nap in the afternoon, and people are like, you're a mom, that's crazy. And I'm like, you know what? I do it and I'm fully recharged. So when my kids get home from school, or now we've obviously
Mm-hmm.
adapted it a little bit, but when my kids get home from school, I'm totally refreshed. And work is not the
Mm.
priority. It's kind of toned down from that and done
Mm-hmm.
that. And I take 2 trips a year that are all about
Okay.
personal development. And so all the courses and programs that I want to take during the year that I don't necessarily have time for, I pile all those up, I bring them all with me, and I just spend that time diving into learning and education and things that matter to me. So I do a lot of things, I think, to really honor myself. And I bet, talking to my family, they would say, actually, my daughter said a few months ago, Mom, you've really changed. And in a good way,
Mm.
right?
Good.
So, the more you
Mm-hmm.
do it, actually, I think the
Mm-hmm.
more it impacts your family in a positive way.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. That's wonderful. Those are some great tips, and just being able, like you said, to
Yeah.
show up for yourself, having the foresight to do what you know you need to do in order to
Yeah.
make that
And
happen. All right. So, yeah, that's great.
yeah, so that's a little bit about
Mm-hmm.
me.
All right. Now, so what is a book that you would recommend for
Oh,
everybody to
um,
read? We got a lot of time on our hands.
yeah, that's a good one, actually. I haven't read anything lately. I've been
Oh,
so
okay.
busy just
Or maybe a
creating,
podcast
creating,
or something,
creating.
or
One of the podcasts that I really, really love, for women
Mhm.
specifically, it's called And She Rises with Amanda Francis.
Oh.
She's so blunt. She just says
Mhm.
it like it is. Like there's no avoiding what she says when it's in your ear. And
That's good.
I'm like that, so I really vibe with that. And one of the other ones is the Rise podcast with Rachel Hollis. I think that's a really great
Mhm.
one. So
Mhm.
yeah, I listen to a lot more
Mhm.
podcasts lately than I do reading, just because I find in our home
Mhm.
it's hard to sit down with a quiet book. Good luck.
I feel you.
Yeah,
I feel you.
I bring those
I
when
feel
I
you.
travel. Those
Yeah.
weeks away, I'll read everything. But in our home,
Mhm.
no. We're playing, we're having fun. Yeah,
Mhm.
yeah. I
I
bet you
feel
do,
you on
right?
that.
It's hard to get that quiet time
Mhm. I know. Yes. So, well, that is great. Well, we have really enjoyed these nuggets that you have shared with us, and so glad that we can connect again. And looking forward to seeing great things out of this content that you're creating. Please keep me in the loop, and I'll be sure to post everything on my platforms when you do create everything that you do. And any last words that you want to share and ways that we can get a
I
hold
think
of you?
my biggest thing right now is that like the number one question or comment or both, I guess, that I hear floating around is people saying, I got to discount my prices because nobody's buying right now with all this stuff in the world. And I've
Mm-hmm.
really challenged my community to show up and rather than discount their prices, restructure their payment plan because you are giving the same amount of time, you are giving the same
Mm.
amount of value, you are creating the same amount of results. And I think when we look at the economy from a global perspective, the more of us that discount our services, we're
Mm-hmm.
we're raising everyone up around us, and that's so great and so admirable. But when we fall, we won't be able to continue to do it, and we still need to be able to pay and provide for ourselves. And so I think that the
Mm-hmm.
restructure versus the reduce is a really effective way. And I've still had a lot of people
Mm.
buying. So my advice would be, to really look at that, right? Or take a piece of your program
Mm-hmm.
and charge less for that piece, but don't give the whole thing. Because at the end of the day, you still have to manage and maintain and
Mm-hmm.
have that own fulfillment that you are able to feel good about doing the work. And, when we get to the end of the
Mm-hmm.
month and not the money, then in the long run, it's not going to be
Right.
good. And I would rather have the payments spread over a year and still know that I have consistent revenue coming in during these times and know that I was still able to
Mm-hmm.
serve and honor and support people versus, giving all my time and effort and
Mm-hmm.
energy away and not knowing how I'm going to survive because I won't be able to serve at the end of that. So I think that that's a really
I
important
love
piece.
that.
So restructure versus reduce.
I love that.
Yeah.
That's a great tip.
Yeah.
Great tip.
All right.
All right. And the best way for them
So
to get
you
a
can
hold of
find
you.
me at the Savvy Networker Global on Facebook or just, search Sarah Gretzinger. I'm sure I'm popping up everywhere these days. We've got 30 Facebook pages. So
Mm-hmm.
depending on what city you're in, I can help connect you to that specific network or, just in our private group to our global community so you can connect with everyone around the world.
Awesome. Well, I really appreciate your time and look forward to connecting and collaborating
All
with you
right.
again
Thank you
soon,
so much
okay?
for having me on the show. And I just love connecting with your community. I'm following everything you're doing.
Uh, Thank you so much.
All
And
right.
we'll
Have a
talk
good
soon,
day.
okay?
Bye.
What a great interview with Sarah. Such a wealth of knowledge about how to network and categorize the people that you come in contact with. And I really love the piece of the confidence that you can have in your abilities to where you're not reducing your prices during a pandemic. To me, I think that is phenomenal because so many times we begin to discount our worth and feel that we have to help other people and put their needs sometimes before our own instead of recognizing that part of putting your oxygen mask on first is to have that self-care. And that comes from if you're doing the same work, then you are worthy of the same pay. I thought that was key. That is definitely something to think about during these times because there are ways that we can help, such as being a guest on this podcast, sharing your wealth of knowledge. Um, if you are interested, please send me an email at info@LachelleAtkins.com, or you can reach out to me through LinkedIn, Facebook Messenger, Instagram, Pinterest, and I have a YouTube channel. So I want to thank you all for listening. I encourage you to share this podcast with other people. That's something that doesn't cost anything. Raise awareness to the fact that there are people out there who are worthy of the value that they bring for you and for other people through their information, their services, products, you name it. So, we need to come together during this time and think of ways that we can help improve the landscape, improve for a better tomorrow. So I want to thank you all for listening. Have a wonderful day.